necessity. And then throughout all of these, there's the question of how does mistake play into that? Mistake of fact. Generally, mistake of fact doesn't matter. Because again, when we're talking about intent, we're talking about what was your intent to move forward? What kind of consequence were you making? It doesn't matter if the consequences were unforeseen, it just matters that you intended to actually make the action. Consent. I want you to think of butt tap. In football, a lot of butt tapping going on. Imagine if you were walking down the road and some random stranger comes up to you and goes, "Hey, good job," and whacks you on your ass. What would that be? Battery. But tap doesn't apply there. Consent is when you're either given explicit consent to do the behavior or it is expressed, it's implicit through the custom. And that could be limited. You could have the doctor who cuts off the wrong toe. The doctor has consent to cut off the right toe, but if he cuts off the wrong toe, he doesn't have consent. That is battery. The consent obviously must be voluntary, and the person must have the capacity to give consent. Must be old enough to give consent, must appreciate the situation, must be awake, if it's a doctor. And of course it must be voluntary. You can't point a gun at someone and say, "You're going to like this." That doesn't work. Self-defense. You can think of it eye for an eye. If you have a reasonable belief that you're going to be injured, you can protect yourself with reasonable force. If someone comes at you with a toothpick, that doesn't mean you can take out a huge gun and shoot them in the head. Not the right self-defense. Someone comes at you with a toothpick, you can punch them. You can take the toothpick out of their hand. You can do something, probably run away if you really think the toothpick is going to hurt you, but you cannot shoot the guy in the head. Then you become the person who's causing the battery, not the person who's coming at you with a toothpick. It has to be necessary. So you're up against the wall, and that's when the guy comes at you with a toothpick. There's nowhere to go. Not quite sure why you're afraid, but you can't just then take out your gun and shoot him in the head. No, it doesn't work. It must be a reasonable amount of force. Mistake works in this case. Mistake works in this case. If you mistook what was going on, if you thought he was coming at you with a gun when in fact it was a play gun, you're still okay because you reasonably thought he was going to shoot you with a gun. Compare that with defense of another. You can defend another person. You can step in their shoes and help them with reasonable force in the same way that they can defend themselves. But what if it's a cop that they're defending themselves against? It was an undercover cop and you didn't realize it. And so you end up shooting the cop. Well, the other person, the person who was being arrested, didn't have the ability to shoot the cop. So even though you're mistaken, you can't use that mistake to help you. You can only have as much ability to defend another as that person has the ability to defend himself. Defense of home, often called the castle doctrine. If the castle doctrine exists in your state like it does in Florida, you can shoot to kill. Oh, you're in my house. Get out of my house. No, okay, bang, you're dead. Presumption is I'm in the right, intruder's in the wrong. If there isn't a castle doctrine, then that means if there is a way for you to leave, you have to leave. If you're protecting yourself and there's no other way to leave, then you can use self-defense. But otherwise, you're going to have to find another way to leave if you can do it safely. You can prevent or attempt to prevent felonies, even if you're not in personal danger. But watch out. You want to make sure that what's going on is what's actually going on, because some states do not accept a mistake of fact to get you out of there. Mechanical defense, just no guns that are going to go off automatically if someone comes to your property. It's not going to work. You have to be there to control the amount of force that's going to hit the other person. Regaining possession of a chattel. If you see someone stealing your property, you can run after them and use reasonable force to get it back. You can't shoot them. Deadly force is never allowed in regaining possession of an item. Think of it this way. Item, life. Item, life. Life wins. Public necessity and private necessity. Public necessity. Think of 24, that show on Fox. There's a nuke going off. I have to stop it. Well, you can trample on the property and blow up things and stop the nuke if it's going to help the community. And guess what? You don't even have to pay for damages you caused, so long as you actually help the community. Private necessity. I almost actually used this once. Hurricane Charlie. When Hurricane Charlie came up a few years ago and was about to hit Pinellas County in Florida, it actually veered off to Port Charlotte before it hit us. But the amount of damage, the amount of water that was going to hit went from 10 feet to 30 plus feet. I was on the second floor of an apartment at the time, and I was literally having to contemplate, well, what happens if the water rises above the second floor? I'm going to have to go up to the third floor and either break the door down or require the person upstairs to let me in so that I don't drown. The person cannot say no during the continuation of the event. But if I break a door down, I have to pay for it. I have to pay for damages that are caused. They actually have to be consequential damages. If I eat their food, I have to pay for it. If I break their door, I have to pay for it. So those are the, just wrap up this. This is the intentional torts. Read the book and write in the online discussions.